Hello, hello, everybody. Gonna take a sip of kombucha. Let Zoom pull you all in. And welcome to the Words or Wands open house. We're going to talk about some things today. So for those of you that were with us for Growth and Scale, I hope you walked away with so much like this. It's sort of like the structure, right? And then what we're talking about today with Words or Wands is really the skills, the strategy, everything that sort of goes into that structure to underpin everything and make it work. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get to it. Okay, here we go. Share my screen. Let's see. Hold on one second. Here we go. Gonna present my screen. Here we go. Welcome to the Words or Wands open house. We're going to cover some things today. So I've been thinking a lot about this because at this point, Words or Wands is a room I've been running for, 9 months now. And it's actually a room where I have felt like, you know how every offer, there's like a unique value proposition, a unique selling proposition. And I think for the first, really up until now, it's just been like people that already know me and they know the brand. They just know that they want to keep riding with me, right? But as I've been thinking about where this room is going and really what I want it to be that just makes it so different than any other room on the internet is it's really the study of where creativity and commerce merge to make sales roll in. And I think there's so much online that talks about like the copywriting, the bullet point lists, and then this, right? Like the sort of commercial production side of things that I feel like a lot of people end up sort of like pigeonholing themselves into, and then their stuff starts to feel super sterile. It starts to feel very, I just keep thinking of like artificial food. You know how like we used to eat food from the earth and then we just started making like mass-produced crap. Like when we go too far in that direction, our words start to taste like that. And I do think just the way that there's like buyers for really awful, like highly produced, not good for you foods, I do think that that copy can work for some people in a lower level of consciousness, but it tends to be that the people that I'm working with are operating on a slightly higher playing field and they're selling to people that, I mean, if we're going to get real specific about it, I do think there's a little bit of like raising the level of consciousness on the planet, right? And it requires a little bit of doing messaging differently. And I really look at the work that we're doing in that room, the refinement, but all of it coming from this very heart-centered place that you never lose the spirit and the aliveness in the words, in the speaking. And I do think that is what has created so much success for the people that are in the room. So I really think of it as like, yes, is it like the roadmap to the consistent growth? And you have all the people that are going to like come in and feel connected to you and purchase, like all of those things. Yes. But that's the commercial production side. And of course, yes, we run businesses to make money, but I think that it's so important to me to balance out the spirit, the aliveness, the heart, the creativity. All of that is also amplified and your connection to that deepens when you're in the room. So here's my philosophy on growing to your first $100,000 to $200,000. One of the things that I have just noticed that keeps so many people stuck in low revenue cycles, and I honestly think this is true even beyond $200,000, but they make their business way too complicated, way too soon. I'm literally in programs right now where like we're building out like a lot of digital infrastructure and funnels. And there's people in there that are like just starting their business and they don't even have an audience. Like it's beyond me how complicated they're making their business and how much time it's going to take them to get to their first $100,000 because they're trying to start from something that works for a much more mature business with an audience, with an established brand, all of those things. And so when I look at what we're really working on in Words or Wands, it's getting out, like literally, if you listen to every single podcast of people that are in that room, it's people that are basically like, I was doing a lot and I wasn't getting a lot of growth. And then I joined the mastermind. Everything became simpler and I grew faster. Right. So like literally, if you listen every single podcast, that's like basically like the thread that runs through all of them is I was doing a lot and I wasn't getting a lot of results. I came in, I simplified everything and I took off. And so it is just like, I think it's in especially if you're in America, there is this belief of, like do more, and like, that's going to get you there. And I really do just think it's like, I do think when you're gaining a skill like messaging, there is some amount of, yes, you have to put in the reps, you have to do the work. But it doesn't take long where you can do less more skillfully and get bigger results than like most of the internet down here. And that's the vibe of Words Are Wands. So here's results you can expect from coming into the room. A repeatable and aligned business strategy that brings clients in consistently and reliably. The ability to clearly articulate value of your one offer. If you have one offer, there's a couple people in the room that are working on having like 2 offers. So then we're going to have the parentheses S. And the value of your services, like, what the unique value proposition is, why people would buy it and come into the room, and how to communicate that. 2, also like who your best fit buyers are, and how to speak to those people, right? We're not trying to sell to people that aren't ready. We're not trying to sell to people that like aren't good fits for our stuff. That doesn't help anyone. You're also going to walk away with a built out messaging plan that can connect with different buyer types. People buy differently, and it's very important to have content that hits all the different ways that hit those different buyer types so that you're able to welcome more people into your space, and connect and communicate with them in a way that will move them towards connection and provoke purchases. Now, I know I said offer, or some people have multiple offers. We cover like the Goldilocks number of offers for you. I work like whatever questions you have, there's trainings on it inside the portal, but I will work with you. Like, you can we have a virtual kickoff day we'll talk about in a minute. You can come and say, okay, based on the training, this is my decision. What do you think about that? And you can get feedback on that. So there's people in the room that some of them just have one offer, some of them have one offer, and then they'll do one-off fun things. Like, I like to think of these as like, how Starbucks has like the pumpkin spice latte? Like that's a signature offer for Starbucks that's only available during a very short window, right? So I like to help people if there's something in their industry or what they're offering where there would be like a pumpkin spice latte kind of offer that is only offered for a short period, but like really amplifies sales and gets buyers excited. It can kind of become a signature thing. The same way, listen, how many people on social media, when it gets to be like October, are like, I want my pumpkin spice latte, right? And so there's like this moment, like Starbucks has trained its buyers to be like excited about when this time of year comes, what they're going to get. So I think that's a really fun thing we can play with. Or even just one-off things like workshops. And there's a very set number of filters and variables depending on the size of your audience, the warmth of your audience, the size of your business, all of those things that are going to really help us figure out what that best setup is for you. And at the end of the day, it's a business that feels way simpler while generating way more revenue. All right. You can also expect a business that allows room for your creative urges and your intuitive knowings while also being super connected to strategy and data. Like, we honor the mind and we also honor the spirit, and the spirit is never locked out. Right. And so I think if anything, like if there's ever a war between the two, spirit will always win for me. And this is a room that honors that being the case. Also, messaging that feels good to write, balancing creativity and expression. But listen, how much of the internet, it's like all creativity and expression. And it's just like you're reading someone's live journal and you're like, I don't know what you're selling. I like you, but I don't know what's happening. Right. So we're not just doing creativity expression. We're looking at it through the filter of like the logical commercial production side of generating consistent sales and making sure that what we're communicating, it feels like a want match between the way and the style that we like to communicate and how our people like to purchase. You're also going to feel a deeper connection to your people, having a depth of understanding and how they like to be communicated with and sold to in a way that feels fun and empowering. And this is not a room where I'm like, this is my thing, and if you don't like my thing, you're wrong, and you like shoehorn yourself into it. I believe very strongly, and like there's different strategies for different people, and I have the flexibility to riff with you on what's going to work for you. So we're always starting with who you are, your unique strengths and gifts in business, and then we're building out an aligned business strategy from that. And it's really fun because I think part of the beauty of being in a mastermind is you see so many different examples. Like right now I have like a multiple six-figure masterminder in the room who she mostly makes money through, it's SEO, right? She has SEO and we're working on the messaging on her website. I have another client at six figures who does it through having a Facebook group. I have another client who's going to hit six figures this year through speaking. So there's a million different strategies. There's a million different paths of action. And it's really just looking at what is most aligned for you. And I think being in a room where the skill of messaging is centered, but it's not a specific strategy being taught, you find your path actually and what feels good to you much easier because you start to see a variety of things. Like you open yourself up to things that you maybe hadn't considered before. All right, let's talk about what you get. So we're going to be enrolling, well, listen, today. It opens for you today. And basically, as soon as you get your payment in, it opens up self-study access until our virtual kickoff. So this says 2 months. At the time of this recording, it's probably more like 2.5 if you get your application in and are accepted and submit your payment. So you get a nice juicy period before our 6 months even starts together of just diving into the portal. And the curriculum, when I say it's a masterpiece, I had a pleasure and precision masterminder who was an education consultant. So her whole thing was actually helping build out curriculums. And when she got into Words Are One, she was like, it's incredible, Catherine. It's so good. And that to me, like, it just felt so good to hear someone that was like, because I'm not like, my background isn't education and curriculum development. I think I'm just naturally quite good at it. But to have my masterminder, who that is literally what she sells in education consulting, like say that Words Are Wands is a masterpiece, I was like, chef's kiss, right? So it's everything you need to know from like start to finish, no stone unturned for your first couple $100,000. We're going to cover everything around offers, the ins and outs of like messaging, what your best clients want, who your client is, and really deeply understanding their unique buyer psychology, because depending on who you're selling to, they're going to have a different mix of like, is it more logical content? Is it more visual storytelling? Like, what is the thing? And it's important to know that so that you can communicate in a way that's actually connecting and provoking purchases. There's also an entire portal. Man, I meant to count. I think it's 16 different trainings. They're not super long. They're bite-sized best practices, all of the messaging best practices that then we basically run our messaging through. And so another thing we'll talk about in a minute is the messaging magic audits every month, but that is like, you'll see that in action. So you're going to learn it conceptually and be applying it before we even get started. And then once we start the audits, you're going to see every single month how those things come into play while we're like refining and putting the editor hat on to really like sharpen up your messaging. The other thing is like really tight evaluations, like how to really go through like point by point. The same way, like, I just find it alarming when people have a business and it's not working and they feel like they don't know why, right? And so I just imagine if you went to a doctor and the doctor was like, let me check your throat, let me check your ears. And then they were like, fuck, I don't know. I just don't know. It could be anything. Like that would not feel good, right? But the doctor knows, like they have an idea of the set of variables. Like, okay, if it's the ears and the throat, it might be this, this, and this. But if it's the ears and not the throat, it's probably that, that, or that, right? Like they sort of have a triaged branch that they're running down to diagnose what's happening with your body. We have that same level of evaluation and rigor with evaluations inside of the mastermind. So you're not ever like that doctor where your business is like, oh, I don't know, it's not working, but I'm not sure what. Like, it doesn't feel good. So we want to make sure you have a process the same way a doctor would run through the things to be able to diagnose what's happening and what the treatment path is. All right. And all of that is in a workbook that you get as soon as you join. So like as you're in the self-study period, you're going to just feel like it's going to feel like I'm holding your hand and walking you through it. Like every time you have a question, it's going to be like, read the next thing, read the next page. So in the self-study period, it really is every single thing you need, no stone unturned. And then after those months of deep diving, really getting a sense of the material, having a baseline of what it is that we're all coming into the room to cover, you're going to be ready for our virtual day kickoff on May 15th. So after all of that time, and we give you there's certain things that if you want to do everything, go whole hog, love it, right? But before our virtual kickoff day, there's set things from the portal and the workbook that are basically like, make sure this, and this are done. These are the things we're covering on our day together. You don't need to guess what that is. We let you know with plenty of time so that you come fully prepared with your answers based on the training and what you've gotten to. And then we're all coming on the virtual kickoff on the same page, right? There's not like having to catch everybody up, like 7 of the people are on one track and like 5 of them are asking questions, right? Like, it's like, nope, everybody's here. And then everybody sort of knows it. We all know the same body of work, the same set of decisions. We're all working on the same thing so that day we're just coaching through your offer suite. If there's certain things around really diving into the buyer psychology of your client avatar, your unique process, all of those types of things, we go through everything so that you feel like you're leaving that virtual kickoff with like a complete 6-month plan. And then that's when the implementation starts. That's when, like after all of that, which is pretty juicy and amazing, that's when our 6-month mastermind starts. So after that, we'll meet every week. And here's what you can expect a mix of. Open coaching calls for like, you've got the portal, you've got all the things. So you're going to bring your questions. You're going to have stuff that comes up on, if you're running consult calls, you might have that. If you've cut out consult calls and there's something weird happening in like in your sequence that you're sending people for sales, like we will troubleshoot that, right? Also specialized trainings. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but like I watch the room and I create things based on what is most helpful. Like I'm really feeling the pulse of what's going on. I love me some strategy. I would say it's like energetically informed strategy or aligned strategy, whatever you want to call it. I just spent my career in strategy and then I sort of took a left turn and I went into this world of like, it's all your thoughts and it's all your energy. And that goes to a very dark place. And I'm just like, let's leave room for energetics. And let's also recognize that there's certain, the way that gravity works in science, there's principles in business are the same thing. There are strategies we can choose to pursue depending on the variables of our business that really like give us leverage and make our chances of success much, much higher. So we do strategy in the room. And then every single month we do our messaging magic workshops where you're able to submit sales pages, emails. We've had people submit podcast transcripts of them like pitching their program. I had a client once, they submitted like a 7-minute segment of them pitching their program in a webinar. So like any of that kind of thing where it's just like, you want me to just take a look at your messaging and you can submit that for direct feedback on what I'm seeing and how I would make adjustments to improve it. And why? Most importantly, why? And I think what's cool is like, because everyone has that foundation of the messaging best practices, it's like, oh, okay, like this is that thing that we've all studied. We're seeing that in action here, which is really cool. All right. I wanted to give you a peek inside our weekly calls so you could have a sense of what it looks like. So I love it. I just told my team, oh, I'm wearing the same shirt. That's fun. I told my team to just make some mock-ups, and sometimes this is what you get. It's fine. Anyway, so this is apparently what I look like on the weekly coaching calls. And this is what it looks like in the portal. So once you join, you're going to get access to all the rounds of past coaching calls. So you won't get this current rounds, it's still running. But then once we start our round, you'll get that past round, if that makes sense, right? So like you'll get the past rounds that have run. And then once our round formally starts, you'll have access to everything. And this is what it looks like when you go into the coaching call replays. I love me some programs. And as I've joined so many programs, when I join something and calls are not time-stamped, I'm just like, those calls are dead to me. Because I'm a busy woman. There's no way I'm going to spend like 80 hours watching calls that I have no idea whether or not it's something that I need help with right now. So because of that, we timestamped the stuff. So like, you're always going to know at exactly what timestamp to look at and be like, oh, would this help me right now? So you can click through past coaching calls and just be like, oh, this sounds good. This seems like what I would want. And I also wanted to not just show you like that, I do think the timestamping is very important for your ability to move quickly and get exactly what you need and not have to like sift, right? Like not have to sift. It's like the energy of sifting that I'm like wanting to cut out as much as possible for you. But also I just wanted to show like the variety of the types of things that we cover in the room. It really does. I would say it like mixes between, there are some people that come on and it's super just like high level, my rising Capricorn meets them, and some super like, this is the strategy, these are the filters, this, right? Like we're doing the thing. And then there's sometimes like this one, I do get psychic downloads when I start to work more closely with people, and I can't guarantee. I have done psychic development training, but like, it's not like I can do it on command, but sometimes stuff just starts opening up and flowing through me in the room. And like with this particular client, there's been a lot of downloads that are just like coming to me for this person. And so this one was like, we're talking, yes, are we talking about like making more with less effort? Yes, but it was like, if you roll the tapes, it's like very dropped in. You can feel there's like something opens in the room. And I would just say if you're joining and you want to join, you've got to be down for both. Because there's things like, and you can look here, I'm just like, I'm working with a client on like what strategic business filters. Listen, I love this. She has grown to multiple six figures. This client, she's moving her family to Spain, was able to do it from her income. It's so juicy. And because of that, we're starting to look at, okay, what do we need to do to your offer suite to accommodate this new lifestyle? Because based on the timing of Spain and having mostly American clients, like we're going to need to adjust the offer and the format a little bit. And so we were really talking about allowing that desire, but then really looking at strategic business filters. And so I think that's it. Like I can go, freebies that lead into an evergreen course, right? It's super like strategy, tactics, the smartest way to go about things, but then also really dropping in and making sure that we're doing that from the root and pulling. It's really, again, it's like spirit and strategy, right? It's like that intersection. Then our monthly messaging magic audits are super yummy and juicy. And I just wanted to share, it has been consistently, the masterminders have said it's like their favorite part of the mastermind is like every month getting to submit something. And one, I think it like, of course, it's always amazing to have your stuff looked at and audited, but like people say it's just almost like equally as valuable, if not more valuable, to see other people's stuff getting workshopped, because it's all the principles and the things that we're covering in the portal. And then when they can start to see content and messaging and angles and different things like that from this lens, they can bring it back and just continue to make their messaging sharper and sharper and sharper. So this is my client, Dina. She said, Catherine's messaging magic workshops are amazing. Like when she shows up, she has already done so much work reviewing our copy and seeing exactly how we are viewing our message through our eyes. But then she's also thinking about our clients, because that's ultimately what she's instilling in us in the mastermind, is to start thinking through the lens of our clients' eyes. We don't self-abandon ourselves, but in order to sell, you have to connect in the way that the client understands it. Otherwise, you're just talking past a bunch of people, which is what a lot of people are doing on social media. And then they wonder why they're not getting sales. And so she does that. And then she shows us exactly where our messaging may or may not be hitting the mark. It's just so great to have somebody else's eyes on your copy, to have somebody else's perspective, and then to help you make the tweaks that you need so that you can become a more effective messenger to help your people. And that was, I don't remember actually if Dina said that on the podcast. It looks like maybe she gave this to my team, but she was also on the podcast. probably about 6 months ago. She had her like first $36,000 month with me, which is very fun. And she has since like upped her prices. She's going into like developing out her next offer. So yummy, yummy growth on all the fronts. All right, let's talk about the specialized trainings. I love me some trainings. So one of the things that I am always doing is tracking what's happening in the room, what's coming up for all of you. I'm keeping my finger on the pulse of what's in the room. I'm noticing themes that are coming up, and then I'm filling it with custom specialized trainings. So just in this cohort alone that I'm running, I don't even think we're halfway through. These are the 3 that I have run so far: the art and science of cold outreach. I had a lot of clients that were either wanting to develop themselves as speakers, get themselves onto podcasts, different things like that, where they were actually really desiring to do cold outreach, but they were like, they hate cold outreach because they've seen it done extremely poorly. And I was like, wait, I ran business development teams that like did this. Like I managed those teams. Like we sold into very high level Fortune 100 companies. Like I know how to do cold outreach. So I did an entire training with templates and everything on exactly how to do it in a way that's like not creepy and weird and has given cold outreach a bad name, but in a way that's really honoring of the client and really represents the value that you're bringing so that you can amplify the opportunity and the chances of them saying yes. We did one on sales pages to actually sell. I went literally break down this, like these are the sections. This is what you cover. This is why you cover it. And then I even went through like based on exactly who your buyer is, like their unique psychology, this section won't matter. Maybe this section won't. Like I really helped break down based on your unique brand and the buyers you attract, what parts of the sales page will be most important. And then lastly, I did a complete one, lots of deep dive screenshots, the back end of my company, everything on how I balance leveraging data and intuition. I am very psychic and I'm also very into data. We run client surveys. We are running our funnels. Like we're always looking at different numbers to make sure that we're using them as like checkpoints and not as things that are there to like run our lives. Because listen, I feel like you could hear there's so many. I was actually just talking to my husband this morning about how like there's some stuff happening in his tech company that's like data's like ruining it. And there's a way that you can go too far. And I see that a lot when people get obsessed with tracking their metrics. It really actually tanks the growth of their business. So we don't want to do that. Oh, and you also get a private community in between calls. So for masterminding, celebrating, getting on the spot feedback or coaching, or anything that comes up for you. So I just grabbed some screenshots. So this was one of my clients who her email list is up, Instagram engagement is up. She passed $101,000 cash collected in her business, and there was still a month left. Super fun. First cash collected $10,000 a month. And these are all like just different masterminders from this round, which is super fun. This is again, another one from this round. Actually, that was probably just posted like $17,000 in the first 6 weeks of the year. And she started, this is her second round with me. And she started when she was at $30,000 per year in her business. And now she's doing $17,000 in 6 weeks within 8 months, which is pretty good. And that's what happens when your messaging skill gets better. This is me. This was not my team's fault. This was me. But I was like, what else can I show them that's like fun? And this was an example of like, it was in between mastermind calls and I had a client post and she had a question. And I was like, I have so much to say about this, but like, how am I going to say it? So I just like, will go live in the Facebook group and I'll be like, here's everything, all of the feedback I would have for you about this thing so that you don't have to wait like 6 days to be able to move on this, right? Like, obviously you can move on your own, but if I can take 5 minutes and help you, you better believe if I have the time on my calendar, I'm going to take 5 minutes and drop something so that you can save yourself like months. Right? Or like not being able to get your answer and move on it until the next mastermind call. Instagram engagement continued to go up and 9 new signups for her newsletter in the last hour. And then also coaching stuff. So this is an example of something I think that was just posted this past week. But it's a very common, like as you come in and you do the messaging work, you're going to start getting so many clients coming to you. And I know it sounds wild if you're here and you're just like, I would like that. Like, and I want to punch you, but like, I promise you, it's like I could almost map it out. Like it's just what I walk people through is they come in dreaming more than anything else that they want their calendar full of clients. And then they start to have so many people, their messaging gets so good. They have so many people coming to them. They have, their list is growing so much, their inbox is flooded. Like there's just so much coming at them at once. It can start to feel overwhelming. And actually, I think I cut this off, but it's basically saying I'm feeling very overwhelmed. And then we have to start to look at what do we need to do? Do we need to up your pricing? Do we need to make changes to offers? Like, is it a thought? Do we need to look at your calendar? But this is like very much the trajectory inside of Words or Wands is like you work on your messaging gets really good. And then you want to have someone to hold you when you've worked so hard to get here. And then all of a sudden your inbox is flooded and all you want to do is hide. Because I promise I've walked so many people through this $100,000, $200,000 level. Like this is a very normal pattern. And it's really important to have people to hold you through it so you don't self-sabotage and sort of let it all go. Wait, I want to go back. Here we go. So this is, if you're interested in hearing some examples of clients who are in the mastermind, these are all episodes. So the Ascension Through Entrepreneurship podcast, episode 165, my client Heather, who had like, it's incredible what she's created, basically being fully booked in her first year of business. Episode 163, my client Dina talks about her path from, she actually has worked with me for years. And I was with her from, I think when she was at like $10,000 ever in her business to now a few years later being at like her first $36,000 month and being able to celebrate that. This is my client Beanie, who has created over 1,000% year-over-year growth, which is super fun and is for sure going to hit 6 figures this year. And this is my client Megan, who's in the room growing to multiple 6 figures because she's been at 100,000 for a couple of years. And she knows there's like a, once you want to move up, right? You have to go from like the cozy 100K pond. We talk about it on the podcast. It's like the chillier, more chilly, multiple 6-figure waters when you're first getting into it. So those are some episodes if you want to hear. Sometimes I like to not just see the screenshots. It's really useful for me when I'm feeling into, especially like a more intimate space like this, to feel into the people, to feel into the mentor. So those are all episodes you can check out if you're interested. Now, who this mastermind is for. It's for service-based solopreneurs who are at between, I would say, 25,000 to 100,000. Oh, there's an extra zero, not $1 million. That is a typo. I would say $25,000 to $100,000 where you're creating clients, but like it feels like spaghetti at the wall. It doesn't feel like you have a consistent, reliable, repeatable process. That is like, again and again, what I hear. It's like people come in, they simplify, and then it becomes very repeatable. Which is fun because then you can layer your creativity on top of it. And it's just like a set, nice bedrock for you. It's also, I'm noticing we're attracting a lot of business owners who are at around the $100,000 level, and they're wanting to move into multiple 6 figures in like a one-on-one or small group capacity. And they're wanting to sign more clients through writing or speaking alone. Like they might be doing a lot more sort of like out one-on-one talking to people, whether that's networking, whether that's in the DMs, and they're wanting to learn to speak more effectively one-to-many through writing, like their social media content, their emails, through speaking, maybe on a podcast or speaking events, things like that, where you're able to draw clients in very closely through speaking one-to-many. The other use case I could see for this, and this is like, I wouldn't say this is a core case, but I would say this could be good for people who are established entrepreneurs that have an offer. It's like they have like other stuff in their business is going well, but like the one thing they really want help on is there's like an offer that it's just like something's not seeming to click, and they really want help getting that up and running off the ground, that specific thing, and the messaging angles and all of that around it. The other things that I think are important here is like something that binds the room together is offers are either one-on-one or small group, and you're desiring simplicity and consistency in client flow. Who this mastermind is not for. This is not a room for beginning business owners who have yet to sign any clients, or if you've only signed like 1 or 2 clients. Like this is really for people who you've signed some clients, you've signed a handful of clients, like your clients are enjoying the work and you're like, man, I just want more of them, right? So it's really not for people who haven't done anything in terms of signing clients yet. This mastermind is also not for business owners in the multiple 6 to multiple 7-figure level who are now running more scaled offers and are wanting more advanced marketing strategies and higher level mentorship. I think the last thing who this would not be good for is businesses who are generating income from like analog sources, like basically the real world. Like if basically right now you're only going out to networking events and you have like no digital footprint, no digital presence at all. I would say get started in the Brand Alchemy Accelerator, start to build out a brand content strategy for a little bit, and then come join us in the next round. It's just like a big to go from like no digital presence to like this room where we're like basically getting your messaging so tight, you're like one to many in all of your writing and speaking. It can just be a big jump. Obviously, if you're just like banging down the doors and you think for some reason there's an exception, you can write to us, but I just don't think generally this would be a good person for the room. All right. So that is all of like the pieces of what we're doing inside of the mastermind. The investment is $10,000. So for all of that, right? The 2.5 months of self-study, the entire portal and the workbook, the full day virtual kickoff, all of the weekly calls after we get started. We're either doing a messaging magic audit or we're doing a weekly call, and then the private community for in-between calls. Which is pretty bananas all on its own, but it's bonus time. So let's talk about what we're doing right now for you all. The early bird gets the worm, and welcome early birds to the worm. So to the first 10 people who apply and are accepted by end of day Friday, that's this Friday, so the end of day tomorrow at 11:59 CST. It's funny, I was going to put midnight, but then I'm like, I feel like that gets confusing. We're just going to say 11:59 CST on Friday. So before the clock strikes midnight and then it like this turns into a pumpkin, this is what we're going to do. You all, for those of you that are not in the Brand Alchemy Accelerator, you just get a free pass into the accelerator for your entire time, and not just for the 6 months of the mastermind. It will be for whenever you remit payment up through the entire time you're here. So at that point, it's like what, 8.5 months. So that basically works out to be at around $3,000 in value. And it's everything that we have there, like the entire curriculum, the community is like off the charts in terms of engagement. We've got at this point a global community. It's really a beautiful place to be when you're like stepping into something bigger. This is around branding. You can submit specific stuff around branding because listen, I think identity, like so much of it, we will come back to that in Words or Wands anyway, but it is super useful. The way that I teach and the holistic way that I really approach branding, it is helpful to have that framework because really it's like who before how, like the strategy and the messaging and everything we're doing, we're always wanting to look at how we're showing up, our identity, all of those things. And so a lot of times in messaging, I'm like, oh, your brand positioning is off. And really that's something more that we're going to cover in here. And so you can just have it for free by joining now. Or you can pick the marketplace. So this is an either or situation. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I've been looking at the accelerator and like, this is such a juicy thing, let me snap it up. Or we also had a lot of people like come into the marketplace or be eyeing the marketplace. This is a mini mind I'm currently running. And listen, my rising Capricorn is like so happy every Wednesday when I run this program. This is not thoughts. This is not energy work. This is like the stuff that I was doing with business strategy when I was like building 8 and 9 figure companies. We're looking at like all of the external things, right? Shifting algorithms, what marketing platforms are best in 2024, artificial intelligence. We had 2 weeks on that where I go through my entire tech stack and how we're using AI to get like 4 times more done in less time. I give you a detailed ChatGPT guide on exactly how digital entrepreneurs can be using it now. And my mini minder, Amy, just yesterday was like, oh my gosh, it's like changed my life since like getting that workbook. So it really is just having like curated stuff for exactly like what digital entrepreneurs need. Super useful. Actually, just yesterday, I ran the training on economic cycles and how your messaging and offer suite might need to change depending on if your market is in an expansion or a contraction, how to know if it's in an expansion or a contraction, and exactly what to shift to make sure you're poised to like keep like the wind at your sails as you go. We also talk about the different resource types that are always being traded in marketplaces And money is only one of those resource types. And I feel like most people grow slowly because they don't know the other 7 and they don't know how to leverage them and then transfer those resource types into more money. So that was like a very juicy training that like basically blew everybody's mind. It was super fun. And then basically just like how to stay ahead of the market, like riding momentum rather than what I've just seen in the past year is so many people just got like their faces beat down, right? Like my business, while like so many other people, digital businesses were like tanking last year that were like selling digital entrepreneurs. I'm like, oh no, we're staying the course, right? And I think it really is my ability to read the marketplace and like understand what's happening and how to adapt and evolve everything to sort of keep momentum at my back. So if that sounds like more your jam, you can also have the marketplace. So you get to choose, do you want the marketplace or do you want the accelerator? And you can just let us know. We'll let you know the first time to apply. We'll let you know. We'll ask which one you want, and we will just grant you access to those things. And then lastly, a live messaging magic workshop in March. So as I said, the messaging magic workshops are cited as far and away like Masterminders' favorite parts of Words or Wands. And so one of the things that I was thinking about was like, what could I offer that would like really allow rocket fuel for you all before we even hit the ground running in May? And I was like, oh, like if I can look at what you're doing and you can submit something to me in March and you already have access to the self-study portal, I'm able to, one, you can walk away with a completely refined, optimized piece of content, which is great, but you're going to understand, I'm going to walk you through why. And then based on what I'm seeing, I'm probably going to let you know what to focus on inside of the portal to really up your messaging. Like I can sort of, right? Remember the doctor that could diagnose and triage things? Like based on what I'm seeing from you, I can sort of direct and triage you to what parts in the portal will be most useful for you, given what I'm seeing in your messaging. And so that will be available for all Masterminders who apply now through, what did I say, end of night on Sunday. So basically first 10, you get your pick of one of those juicy programs. And then everybody through Sunday is going to walk away with this. And I think it's fun because then you'll like get to meet like some of your fellow Masterminders on the call before we even get started in May. All right. And that's it. Time for the Q&A. I'm going to take a sip of water and then we'll get to questions. So you can start to drop your questions in the chat. Also, I don't bite. So if you like just want to talk to me, you can raise your hand and come on too. All right. Let's see what we got. Hi, I have 2 questions. You mentioned looking at pricing a couple times. Is that part of messaging? No, so basically, like I help people with like their offers and their pricing. Really, I think of pricing, we do that in the accelerator, but I think it's also important in Words or Wands. There's some things that I feel like, because not everybody does the branding program before they come into Words or Wands, I'm not going to like let you have like off pricing or positioning, even if you haven't done the branding work. So it's like, if I see something that's off, like I will work with you on what that is, because your pricing is always coming from what your brand is and making sure that it's aligned with your positioning. And it's like, there's a buyer and seller for every like offer and every price point. And so the skill we're focusing on is messaging primarily, but we're covering offer suite. We're covering like, I mean, like every sort of facet of like just what comes up in the day-to-day of like growing to that level. Your other question, I'm at $600,000 revenue last year, but was at 1 million for a while prior to that. My hunch is that part of this is the changes that have happened in a more sophisticated audience and that I need to refine my messaging to the next levels. Sales feel harder, not easier. I'm definitely at multiple 6 figures. I've been at multiple 6 figures since 2017. Thoughts on best fit mentorship mastermind? I would probably want to talk to you. Like, so I don't know if you're here and you want to talk, like raise your hand, or I'm also in the application. I'm letting people know you can request a sales call. Like I'm emotionally and logically available for those of you who are coming into more intimate containers with me for stuff like this. Cause I think I did say, I don't know when you wrote this question, but one of the things where I was like, who this is for, I do think for more established entrepreneurs where you think the acute issue is messaging, then I think this could be a fit. The only thing is that like, I think I would be curious where your $600,000 is coming from, because there's certain things in pleasure and precision that are more like digital infrastructure, like setting up evergreen sequences, really think if you're doing anything with ads, I would say for sure pleasure and precision. So if any of that is helpful, and if you want to like follow up here, you can, I would say apply, and then you can request a sales call. When you do that, and we can really like riff on what's going to be best for you. But I think those are the sort of filters that I would look at to, based on what you're saying, like, yeah, those are the things where I would be like, if this, then that, but if ads, then pleasure and precision is basically what I would say. Okay. I've invested in high-level mentorship, but never a high-level mastermind. Can you speak to the differences between the two? Yes. So it's kind of funny, actually. I was thinking about this the other day. Someone else was like writing in, they were like, I guess they are working one-on-one with someone, and they were asking about a mastermind. And it's I have very strong opinions about the power of masterminds and why masterminds are the best thing in the world. But to be fair, I'm extremely biased. I've never worked one-on-one with a business coach ever. Like when I was at $30,000, I joined a high-level mastermind. And ever since, I've just like, so I can give you all the things that I love about masterminds and that I think are really great about being in my masterminds. One, I think I curate exceptional space, like squeaky clean, very high level people. And so I think it's like when people come into my spaces, even if they've been in other masterminds, it's like a thing they'll note is like the quality and the caliber of the people in the room. And that's really what makes a group, right? And so I think it's very important when you go into a mastermind that it is just like a very curated high level of person. So I think there's that. And then what that opens you up to when you have a curated space that's all focused on the same type of thing in their business is you get to see, sort of like when I was talking about the messaging audits and then getting to see like everyone else's like messaging, you see things like you grow in awareness so much faster, seeing what's happening in other people's brains, their patterns, their minds, their messaging, what they're saying. Then I think if you're working one-on-one, it's like, it feels like it would be a slower slog to me, where it's like you have something and then you like have this here. Whereas one of the things that I think helped me grow so fast was being in masterminds and seeing people get coached on stuff that was like above and beyond. Like there were people at like 8 steps ahead, right, on the path. But because I was in a mastermind and I was watching where they were at, I was able to never fall into that hole. And so I think there's like, one, I think community is like so important. Like I don't know. I also just believe there's like a woman thing too. Like we just tend to do very well in community if we can get over our like, I don't know, like the little girl thing of like, I'm afraid I'm not going to fit in. Like if you can really come as an empowered woman and flower in the space, you will make connections. You will learn more faster by having like a room that operates at this level. I'm just going to say, my client Beanie is here and I'm just going to read her. Catherine over delivers like no other. The value is a literal no brainer. Just had to come here and say this. Thank you, Beanie. Right. So I think it's like, you've got people that are like so happy they're leaving comments as you're on your open house. Right. So like, it's ambitious women, it's open-hearted women. And I think when you're in a mastermind like this, you just make moves a lot faster. And if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Do you help with building out and defining full offer suite? So I don't know if this is coming from the $600,000 person or not. There's certain things, and again, this is why I was saying, depending on where you're at. So I'm not sure who's asking this question and what the things are that are happening in your business. If you are at, I would say, over $300,000 or $400,000, and you're getting into more of a fuller offer suite with like a different types of buyers and different types of messaging that segments out to those offers, that's more complex than is relevant for Words or Wands. So if you're a more advanced entrepreneur and you're just wanting to work on one offer with one segment and one messaging, like that's for sure, we can work on that here. I would say if you're at below $200,000, you do not need an offer suite. So if you were here for the beginning, I don't know, not everyone might've been here, but I had a chart that was showing like how complicated people make their businesses so soon. And then that keeps them from growing, right? And I think having so many offers before you really have the skills of branding, messaging, and a large audience keeps your business stuck in a way that's not helpful. And so what we work on in the mastermind is more of like a signature offer. And then I don't know if you were here for this, but I talked about like the pumpkin spice latte offers, like having more one-time things that you do annually or more creative one-time offers. But when you have a full offer suite, that's really for a more advanced business that would be more a fit for pleasure and precision. All right, my audience is really small. Is this too advanced for me? Well, if Beanie's still here, she can write in the chat. I'm just going to call her out because she was just on the podcast recently and like we talked about this. Your audience is not, listen, actually, if your audience is like 8 people, your audience might be too small, or listen, in the self-study period, just go out and meet a lot of people and grow your audience. But I find people say like my audience is really small when they have like 100 people or like 200 people in their audience. And the question I always like to ask about this is like, okay, if you had to host your entire audience for like a party at your house this afternoon, what would you think? And most people are like, oh my gosh, that would be super overwhelming. I'd have to like get so much food. There'd like be so much to plan. Where would I put everybody? And I'm just like, right. Yes, right. Like, we sort of get desensitized in the online space to seeing these like larger people with like hundreds of thousands of followers. And I really do think it's like people can't believe my revenue level given how small my audience is. And I just do think it's like, I don't think it's about the size of your audience. I think it's about your connection and the warmth with your audience and your relevance. Here's a like hyper relevance. I've been thinking about this is like, if we can get your messaging hyper relevant to your people, it doesn't matter the size of your audience because your offer and your messaging is positioned in a way that is hyper relevant to the person for purchase. And that's what creates sales, right? Not the size of your audience. All right. I'm focusing on becoming more well-known for my speaking this year. Would you help with developing the signature topics or just refining once I've completed it? We could totally work on your signature topics. That's one thing actually I've like told my masterminders on we could do this actually on any of the weekly calls, but I think it's like a great topic to bring to a messaging magic workshop because the way that I like, this is just what it is, right? Like messaging is more the broader ideas and the angles that you're covering. And then copywriting is how you're then communicating those ideas. And so messaging really is, it's not just like, can we say it snappier? It's just like when we think about you, your brand, what you're wanting to be known for, and your ideal buyer, what are the topics, right? Like how can we sort of use that as a filter to really build you out a bridge that's going to bring you the most sales quickly that you enjoy? It's something that you enjoy talking about. And it's something that your people, it's like catnip for them. And then it walks them the path to purchase like much faster. So yes, I can totally help you with that. Okay. I don't market on Instagram. Do you help people who market on other platforms? Yes. I probably should put this in the FAQ. I've gotten that question in the accelerator, but never here before. For sure. First of all, I get most of my clients from my podcast, and increasingly I get most, like I would say email and podcast are probably the top 2 now. When we ran our last surveys and we're running the data, Instagram's only about 20% for me. And then I think it's providing a lift of nurture, right? But there's, it's just interesting that people associate me with like, yes, I do market on Instagram, but like we have people in the room that market on LinkedIn. We have people on Instagram. We have people who run Facebook groups. We have people that are like out speaking to large audiences, right? So it's like messaging is anywhere, right? Like if you're going to a networking event, that's messaging, the way you're like speaking to someone, what you're talking about. If you're writing copy for your website, that's messaging. Like if you're on Instagram or LinkedIn, it doesn't matter. It's all messaging, right? And so it's really getting to the core of what that is. And then if you want help figuring out what platform to deploy that on that makes the most sense for you, that's also something that we can cover. Do you teach messaging different for different places? Example, email versus social media. There are things I've thought about that might be something that comes in as like a specialized training. I've like told my masterminders, I'm like, listen, you get to like, I think of the strategic trainings, I was like, I'm like a DJ. You can like put in, you know how you can like walk up to the DJ and be like, I would like this. So for instance, I did that whole training on sales pages. So that does like, I don't believe in formulas and templates. I feel like if those dampen our creativity, they're not helpful. But I do believe for some people having structure into what messaging looks like in different places, that can be super helpful. So we definitely talk about different things like We'll talk about like subject lines versus this, right? Like stuff like that for email. There's a whole training on sales pages. And I have actually thought about bringing on, we've like really gotten a lot deeper into our social media strategy than like I've ever been, basically because I brought a content person on. So like now there's capacity to think about that. And so we are looking at doing things in a much more nuanced way. And I'm totally, listen, if you want to come in and request that training, I'll do it just for you. But yeah, we do stuff depending on what the things are. What are the dates that this round runs? So I know we start on May 15th, and I know that we end in November. I don't have the day in November off the top of my head, but I know, I mean, it's about 6 months. It's basically 26 weeks with like 2 weeks of breaks. We have like a summer break and a fall break. So it's like 24 calls during that 6-month period. But I'm sure it'll be in an email somewhere, or you could write to support if you need the exact date in November, but it's through probably around mid-November. All right. I know it's 10K pay in full, but can I split the 10K between payment methods? Yes, you absolutely can. I'm not sure if you can do that directly when you go to pay, but 100%, I know that's something my team helps people with all the time. So if that's something, if it's not immediately available to you when you go to remit payment, just email support@CatherineMorsonCoaching.com and they can hook you up with whatever you need on the payment side of things. Okay. All right. So that is all the questions here. If anyone has anything else, I'm going to take another sip of my kombucha and you can drop another question. Or again, if you want to connect, you can raise your hand now and chat. Or when you go to apply, there's going to be a little checkbox. If you want to request like 20 minutes to just connect with me and make sure, given where you're at, that you're a best fit for the room, I'm happy to do that. So you want to take a sip? We might close out or we might keep going. Let's see. Excited, I'm applying. Perfect. I don't know, because that's the thing. I think so basically the way it's going to work is the sales page isn't active right now. You all slipped behind the velvet rope right now. So the sales page doesn't have the application on it. Basically, you should have an email in your inbox with the application. It will go direct to the application link, which is like a little in the DL, right? Like the general public doesn't have this right now. So you can apply directly through that link. And then like, if you want one of those bonuses, for sure, I would like grab that right now. And then I think that's it. If you have any other questions, obviously feel free to reach out. And if you check your email, because you want to go apply and you're like not seeing the link, just write to support@CatherineMorsonCoaching.com. Listen, we're talking about when that person with the 600,000. And I'm like, listen, if you want to do like advanced stuff with segmenting. So we've done our best we think we have everyone segmented on the back end so that you should be getting the links that you should be getting. But we might have you tagged wrong in our system, in which case you will not have the application. And then please just write to support@CatherineMorsonCoaching.com and we will get you hooked up. All right. I can't wait to ride with you all this year. I guess, yeah, we'll be riding from like May through November. So that's the other thing. If you want support this year, like this is it. The next round is going to be November when we started like mid-November. So if 2024 is your year to like grow, this is the room and I would love to see you there. So go to your email, get the link to the application, and I'll see you there. Bye.